Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desa Tarane. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sajajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Dev Shri Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desa Tarane. This is reading from Nectar of Devotion, chapter 38, Indifference and Separation. The great devotee Uddhava once wrote a letter to Krishna. My dear Krishna, I have just finished the study of all kinds of philosophical books and Vedic verses about the goal of life, and now I have a little reputation for my studies. But in spite of my reputation, my knowledge is condemned, because although enjoying the effulgence of Vedic knowledge, I could not appreciate the effulgence emanating from the nails of your toes. Therefore, the sooner my pride and Vedic knowledge are finished, the better it will be. This is an example of indifference. Another devotee very anxiously expressed himself thus: my mind is very flickering, so I cannot concentrate upon your lotus feet. And seeing this inefficiency in myself, I become ashamed, and the whole night I'm unable to sleep because I'm exasperated by my great inability. In the Krishna Karnamrita, Bilvamangal Thakur has explained his restlessness as follows: my dear Lord, your naughtiness in boyhood is the same most wonderful thing in the three worlds, and you yourself know that this naughtiness is. As such, you can very easily understand my flickering mind. This is known to you and me. Therefore, I am simply yearning to know how I can fix my mind on your lotus feet. Another devotee expressed his impudence by saying, my dear Lord, without considering my lowly position, I must confess to you that my eyes are just like black wasps, desiring to hover at your lotus feet. In the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th chapter, verse 37, the great sage Narada informs Maharaj Yudhisthira about Prahlad Maharaj, who was a devotee from the very beginning of his life. The proof of Prahlad's natural devotion is that even when he was a small child, he did not play with his playmates, but was always eager to preach the glories of the Lord. Instead of joining in their sportive acrobatic feats, he remained an inactive child because he was always in a trance, meditating on Krishna. As such, there was no possibility of his being touched by the external world. The following statement is about a Brahmana devotee. This Brahmana is very expert in all kinds of activities, but I do not know why he is looking up without moving his eyes. It appears that his body is fixed motionless, just like a doll. I can guess that in this condition he has been captivated by the transcendental beauty of that expert flute player, Sri Krishna, and being attached to him, he is simply staring at the black cloud, remembering the bodily hue of Sri Krishna. This is an example of how a devotee can become inert due to ecstatic love. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 4th chapter, verse 40, Prahlad Maharaj says that even in his childhood, when he was loudly speaking the glories of the Lord, he used to dance just like a shameless madman. And sometimes, being fully absorbed in thought of the pastimes of the Lord, he used to imitate such pastimes. This is an instance of the devotees being almost like a madman. Similarly, it is said that the great sage Narada was so ecstatically in love with Krishna that he would sometimes dance naked, and sometimes his whole body would become stunned. Sometimes he would laugh very loudly, and sometimes he would cry very loudly. Sometimes he would remain silent, and sometimes he would appear to be suffering from some disease, although he had no disease. This is another instance of becoming like a madman in the ecstasy of devotion. In Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya, it is stated that when Prahlad Maharaj was thinking himself unfit to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he immersed himself in great distress, in an ocean of unhappiness. As such, he used to shed tears and lie down on the floor as though unconscious. The students of a great devotee once talked among themselves this way: "My dear God brothers, our spiritual master, after seeing the lotus feet of the Lord, has thrown himself into the fire of lamentation, and because of this fire, the water of his life is almost dried away. Let us now pour nectar on the holy name through his ears, and by doing so, the swan of his life may again show signs of life." When Lord Krishna went to the city of Shonitapur to fight with Bali's son Bana and to cut off his hands, Uddhava, being separated from Krishna and thinking of his fight, was almost completely stunned into unconsciousness. When a devotee is fully in love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there may be the following symptoms due to his feelings of separation from the Lord: a feverish condition of the body, withering of the body, lack of sleep, non-attachment, inertness, appearing diseased, madness, unconsciousness, and sometimes death. As far as the feverish condition is said, Uddhava once told Narada, "My dear sage, the lotus flower that is the friend of the sun may be a cause of distress for us. The fire in the ocean may cause us some burning sensation, and Indivara, the friend of the moon, may distress us in various ways. We don't mind. But the most regrettable factor is that all of them remind us of Krishna, and this is giving us too much distress. This is an instance of a feverish condition due to being separated from Krishna." Some of the devotees who went to see Krishna at Dwarka and were detained at the door said, "My dear friend Krishna, O friend of the Pandus, as the swan loves to dive in the water among the lily flowers and would die if taken from the water, we wish only to be with you. Our limbs are shrinking and fading because you have been taken away from us." The king of Bahula, although being very comfortably situated in his palace, began to think the nights very long and distressing because of his separation from Krishna. King Yudhishthira once said, "Krishna, the charioteer of Arjuna, is the only relative of mine within the three worlds. Therefore, my mind is becoming maddened day and night with separation from his lotus feet, and I do not know how to situate myself or where I shall go to attain any steadiness of mind." This is another example of lack of sleep. Some of the cowherd friends of Krishna said, "My dear Krishna, O enemy of the Mura demon, just think of your personal servant Raktaka. Simply because he saw a peacock feather, he is now closing his eyes and is no longer attentive to pasturing the cows. Rather, he has left them in a faraway pasture and has not even bothered to use his stick to control them. This is an instance of mental imbalance due to separation from Krishna." When Lord Krishna went to the capital of King Yudhishthira, Uddhava was so afflicted by the fire of separation from Sri Krishna that the perspiration from his inflamed body and the tears from his eyes poured from him. In this way he became completely stunned. When Sri Krishna left the city of Dwarka to seek out the Shamantaka jewel, and he was late returning home, Uddhava became so afflicted that the symptoms of disease became manifested on his body. Actually, due to excessive ecstatic love for Krishna, Uddhava became known in Dwarka as crazy. Due to his great fortune, on that day Uddhava's reputation as crazy fellow was firmly established. Uddhava's craziness was practically proven when he went to the Raivataka hill to minutely observe the congested black clouds. In his disturbed condition, he began to pray to these clouds, and he expressed his jubilation by bowing down before them. Uddhava informed Krishna, "My dear leader of the Yadu dynasty, your servants in Vrindavan cannot sleep of night thinking at you, so now they are all lying on the bank of the Yamuna almost paralyzed, and it appears that they are almost dead, because their breathing is very slow. This is an instance of becoming unconscious due to separation from Krishna." Krishna was once informed, "You are the life and soul of all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, so because you have left Vrindavan, all of the servitors of your lotus feet there are suffering. It is as if the lakes filled with lotus flowers have dried up from the scorching heat of separation from you." In the example given here, the inhabitants of Vrindavan are compared to the lakes filled with lotus flowers. And because of the scorching heat of separation from Krishna, the lakes, along with the lotus flowers of their lives, are being burned up. And the swans in the lakes, who are compared to the vitality of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, are no longer desiring to live there. In other words, because of the scorching heat, the swans are leaving the lakes. And the metaphor is used to describe the condition of the devotee separated from Krishna. Chapter 39. Ways of meeting Krishna. When Krishna and his devotees meet, the meeting is technically called yoga, or linking up with the Lord. Such meetings between Krishna and his devotees can be divided into three classes, namely perfection, satisfaction, and steadiness. When the devotee meets with Krishna in great eagerness, that state of meeting is called perfection. In the Krishna Karnamrita, Bilva Mangal Thakur describes how Krishna meets his devotee, with peacock feather in his head and Marataka jewels on his chest, and his ever-enchanting smile, his restless eyes, and his very delicate body. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 38th chapter, Sukadev Goswami tells King Parikshit, "My dear king, as soon as Akrura, the chariot driver, saw Lord Krishna and his elder brother, Balaram, in Vrindavan, he immediately got down from the chariot, and being greatly afflicted by affection for the transcendental Lord, fell down upon his lotus feet to offer respectful obeisances." These are some of the instances of perfectional meetings with Krishna. When a devotee meets Krishna after long separation, the meeting is one of satisfaction. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th chapter, verse 10, it is stated that when Lord Krishna returned to his capital, Dwarka, the inhabitants said, "Dear Lord, if you remain in foreign countries for so long, we will certainly be bereft of seeing your smiling face. Upon observing your face, we, your eternal servants, become greatly satisfied. All the anxieties of our existence are immediately mitigated. If we cannot see you because you are long absent from Dwarka, then it will be impossible for us to live anymore." This is an instance of satisfaction on meeting Krishna after long separation. Krishna's personal servant Daruka, seeing Krishna at the door of Dwarka, began to offer him respects with folded hands. When a devotee is ultimately situated in association with Krishna, his position is called steadiness in devotional service. This steady position in devotional service is explained in the book Hansadutta, and it is described here how Akrura, who was considered by the gopis to be the terror personified, would talk with Krishna about the activities of the Kuru dynasty. A similar steady position was held by Uddhava, the disciple of Brihaspati. He would always massage the lotus feet of Krishna while kneeling down on the ground before him. When a devotee is engaged in the service of the Lord, he is said to have reached the attainment of yoga. The English equivalent of the word yoga is linking up. So actual linking up with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, begins when the devotee renders service unto him. Devotees situated in the transcendental rasa of servitorship render their particular service whenever there is an opportunity. Sometimes they sit down in front of Krishna to receive orders. Some persons are reluctant to accept this level of devotional service as actual bhakti yoga, and in some of the Puranas this is servitorship and devotional service is not accepted as actual bhakti yoga. But Srimad Bhagavatam has clearly indicated that the servitor relationship with Krishna is the actual beginning of yoga realization. In the 11th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd chapter, verse 32, it is stated that when devotees are engaged in the discharge of bhakti yoga, sometimes they cry from thinking of Krishna, sometimes they laugh, sometimes they become jubilant, and sometimes they talk in very uncommon ways. Sometimes they dance, sometimes they sing, sometimes they are actually engaged in the service of the Lord, and sometimes they sit down silently as if absorbed in a trance. Similarly, in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 7, verse 34, Prahlad Maharaj says to his friends, "My dear friends, as soon as pure devotees of Lord Krishna hear the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which is the eternal reservoir of pastimes, or hear about his transcendental qualities, they become overpowered with jubilation. Ecstatic symptoms are manifested in their bodies. They shed tears, talk falteringly, glorify the Lord in a loud voice, and chant and dance in ecstasy." These ecstasies are always there, but sometimes they overcome all limits, and the symptoms become manifest to all. In the process of surrender under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are 6 items to accept everything favorable for devotional service, to reject everything unfavorable for devotional service, and to believe that Krishna will always give protection, to identify oneself with Krishna's devotees, always to feel inability without the help of Krishna, and to always think oneself inferior to Krishna, even though one may have full capacity to perform something on his own. When one is substantially convinced that he is always protected by Krishna in all circumstances, that feeling is called reverential devotion. Reverential devotion is executed in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and with his other protected devotees. When Krishna was residing in Dwarka, some of the elderly members of the Yadu family would occasionally put some important matter before him. At such a time, Krishna would carefully give attention to those matters, and if there were some humorous topics mentioned, Krishna would immediately respond with a smiling face. Sometimes when Krishna was executing his duties in the assembly known as Sudharma, he would ask the elderly members for good advice. By such activities, he is manifest as the Supreme Spiritual Master, the Supreme Executive Head, the superior intelligence, and the supreme power, protector and maintainer. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave it for a few minutes. Next chapter is chapter 40.